This is Jim from realtruth.net. It is June 4th, 2019. This is lesson 23, and I will be speaking on Colossians 2:16. And this video was prompted by a comment on YouTube from a fellow who had asked me to clarify what I meant when I was talking about the Sabbath that were mentioned in Colossians 2:16. And his comment was, is it not redundant that Paul spoke of feast days and Sabbaths if those Sabbaths were the Levitical Sabbaths? And I'm paraphrasing how this was asked. So if it was not the seventh-day Sabbath that was talked about. So I just thought I'd put together a quick video and hopefully an explanation here of Colossians 2:16. In Colossians 2:16, this is what it reads. Should add this ready for you. Down here to 16. It says, let no man judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or the new moon or the Sabbath days. Now this is the King James type rendition. I've got it updated a little bit here, because in the Greek, the word the, and days are not in the scriptures. They are not there. And I'll just show this to you real quick, just so you understand. This is or, okay, and then Sabbath. And there is no a or the in the scripture. I'm sorry, in the writing, in the letter from Paul. So really it's saying, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink. And this word meat is food. Just to clarify that, eating of food. It's not a steak. All right, that's a steak is meat, but so bread is meat in these contexts. So let no man therefore judge you in food or in drink or in respect of a festival, which is what this word means. It's not feast days. It can mean feast, but mostly it is festival. Okay, or new moon or Sabbath. So that's the verse we're talking about, and it was these ors that was talked about. Would it not be redundant if this and this are the same thing, and they are not the same thing, and this is not the seventh-day Sabbath? And that is the premise of this video. The Protestant churches use this Colossians 2:16, especially from the King James Version, as one of their primary verses to abrogate the seventh-day Sabbath. Now, the Roman Catholic Church doesn't need this verse to abrogate it, because they are very aware and know that Constantine changed the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day of the week to bring in the sun worshippers. Go out, doesn't take much study, get their catechisms, and they are very proud of the fact that they could change that day. They know they did it. Now the Protestants use this and other various verses also to try and prove their first day worship is of the Bible and not because they are following the Roman Catholic Church. But if any honest Protestant would do even a little amount of honest study, they would find that the Protestant reformers did indeed tackle the issue of the seventh-day Sabbath and chose to keep the Catholic's tradition of the seventh day to first day change. It did not go back. As a matter of fact, that is why the Catholic Church did not accept the Reformation, did not accept Martin Luther's thesis. And if you read in the history, it even states it very clearly there. They were almost swayed. But the fact that he did not go back to the seventh-day Sabbath, they proved, they used that as the point to say, you're really not changing. You're still accepting our authority because you would not do this. Therefore, you're excommunicated. You're done. So, okay. So even today, nothing's changed since the Reformation. In the Catholic and the Protestant churches, the traditions of men always trump the Bible. And that's just the way it is today. The traditions of men always trump the Bible. It's what we've always done. Just a little study. It only takes a little study to prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that Colossians 2:16 is not speaking of the seventh-day Sabbath in any way. In all of Paul's writings, he holds the law of Yahweh, the Ten Commandments, on the highest pedestal as holy, just, and good. And even Yeshua says that if we would find life, we are to keep the commandments. The commandments were life-giving and by which we are to live. Even Moses said, choose you this day. Choose life or choose death. Keep the commandments of God and have life. Now the law of Yahweh, spoken by Yahweh, written with Yahweh's very own finger, and he did it twice, to which he added no more, was never referred to as traditions of men, rudiments of the world, or ordinances. Never once in Scripture can you find that. Not once, not ever, are they referenced or treated in such a way. So why then does the Protestant choose to treat Yahweh's holy, just, and good law in such a manner when it comes to Colossians 2:16? It does boggle the mind, doesn't it? It really does. It's makes one almost clueless as to why they do this. The whole of Colossians 2 is talking about our completion in Yeshua. As we are buried and risen with him through baptism and are no longer under the rudiments and ordinances of the world, the carnal things of this world that made one righteous in Moses. Colossians 2 does not even remotely refer to the law of Yahweh in any way. And to take the one word Sabbath and conjecture that one word to refer to the law of Yahweh, to the Ten Commandments, is a very, very fatal error. And Peter warns us that folks are twisting Paul's words to their own destruction. So let us not be one of those folks that will twist Paul's words to your own destruction. So make sure we don't do that. In Paul's writings, he is very specific about the works of the law, circumcision, the clean and unclean, the foods we eat, etc. And these are the works that will not save us, that cannot make us righteous, and they are just a show of wisdom in will worship, in humility, neglecting of the body, and in not honoring the satisfying of the flesh. And they do not perfect the heart. They do not perfect the heart. And if we go through Paul's letters to Galatians, Corinthians, Colossians, Romans, and study what Paul was talking about, this is what he said. Behold, I, Paul, say unto you, that if you get circumcised, that the Messiah shall profit you nothing. For in Yeshua the Messiah, neither circumcision avails anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which works by love. For in Messiah Yeshua, neither circumcision avails anything, nor uncircumcision, but a new creature. Circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing, but the keeping of the commandments of Yahweh. Let no man therefore judge you in food, or in drink, or in respect of a harvest, or a new moon, or Sabbath, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of the Messiah. But he is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of Yahweh. Paul writes very specifically, so no one can misunderstand. There are foods, drinks, festivals, the unleavened bread, the tabernacles, and those festivals which included days that were not Sabbath days. The festival days and the Sabbath days around those festivals festivals were different and had different requirements. So he separates them. And he was very specific. He was very wise to separate those days to keep people from coming back and say, well, what about this? What about this? He made it very clear. He made it very clear. And his main theme is that we are to walk in Yeshua the Messiah, who made us alive, and not in those things that could not give life. The ceremonial law, the keeping of the feasts, the keeping of the Levitical Sabbaths, those kind of things did not give life. They showed obedience. It was their work of showing that they understood the redemption plan, that the Messiah was going to come for the true believers that did believe, but they in themselves could not give life. And so this Sabbath that is spoken about in Colossians is not the seventh-day Sabbath. Let me go through and look. We'll finish here, then we'll talk about this. The conclusion is that the law of Moses was a law of rudiments of this world and ordinances and circumcision of the flesh, all works of the hands to be able to stand clean and righteous before Yahweh. But none of that was perfect and could not remove the stain of transgression on the heart or give life. These rudiments of the world and ordinances of food or drink, or respect of a festival or new moon or a Levitical Sabbath, were of the law of Moses, which was a schoolmaster to lead us to the Messiah. And it is a very grievous and fatal error to take the one word Sabbath out of context in Colossians 2 and to reduce Yahweh's holy, just, and good law to the status of the traditions of men, rudiments of this world, and mere ordinances. So be not deceived. Sin is the transgression of the law of Yahweh. The reference scriptures are Colossians 2, starting in verse 1. For I want you to know what great conflict I have for you and for them at Laodicea, and as many as have not seen my face in the flesh, that your hearts might be comforted, being knit together in love, and into riches of the full assurance of understanding, to the acknowledgement of the mystery of Yahweh, and of the Father, and of the Messiah, in whom are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And this I say, unless any man should beguile you with enticing words. And that's what you don't want to be beguiled with, these enticing words. For though I am absent in the flesh, yet I am with you in the spirit, joying in beholding your order and the steadfastness of your faith in the Messiah. As you have therefore received Messiah Yeshua the Master, walk in him, rooted up and built up in him, established in faith, as you have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving. And beware, unless any man spoiled through philosophy and vain deceit, after the traditions of men and the rudiments of the world, and not after the Messiah. For in him dwells completeness of divinity bodily. He was the image of Yahweh. He came to give us Yahweh's word, right? And in him dwelled the completeness. And you are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power, in whom also you are circumcised with a circumcision made without hands, and putting off the body of sins of flesh by the circumcision of the Messiah, buried with him in baptism, wherein also you are risen with him through faith of the operation of Yahweh, who has raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your sins and the uncircumcision of your flesh, has he made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which were contrary to us, took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. Is anything in the law of Yahweh contrary to us? Is anything in the law of Yahweh rudimentary? Is it ordinances? And having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Let no man therefore judge you in food or in drink or in respect of a festival or new moon or Sabbath, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of the Messiah. Let no man beguile you of your reward and voluntary humility and worshiping of angels, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding the head, the Messiah, from which all the body, by joints and bands, having nourishment ministered and knit together, increases with the increase of Yahweh. If you are dead with the Messiah from the rudiments of the world, why, as though living in the world, are you subject to ordinances of touch not, taste not, handle not, which all are to perish after the commandments and doctrines of men? All of these things were in Moses, folks. They were all in Moses. That you cannot find one of these items that he's speaking of here in Yahweh's law, the Ten Commandments. You cannot find it there. These things which do indeed show wisdom in will worship, humility, and neglecting of the body, not in any honor to the satisfying of the flesh. That's what it was. Fasting, all of those things. They were, if we do this to ourselves, we're holy, righteous, and good, right? We'll wear our teat seats, we do all these things. That's what made them righteous. Romans 2:25, for circumcision profits if you keep the law. It only profits if you keep the law. But if you are a breaker of the law, your circumcision is made uncircumcision. Therefore, if the uncircumcision keep the righteousness of the law, shall not his uncircumcision be counted as circumcision? And shall not uncircumcision, which is by nature, if it fulfill the law, judge you who by the letter and circumcision do transgress the law? For he is not a Jew which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and the circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, and not in the letter, whose praise is not of men, but of Yahweh. Where is boasting then? It is excluded. But by the law of works? Nay, but by the law of faith. Now, you could not keep the feasts of Yahweh, the Passover, unleavened bread, all those things. You were put to death. You were stoned to death if you came in to keep the feast of Passover and unleavened bread uncircumcised. It was an absolute requirement. It was a flesh and blood physical requirement to be circumcised in order to keep the feast of Passovers. But there was never a requirement to be circumcised to keep the law of Yahweh, to keep the commandments, to keep the Sabbath, to not murder, not steal, not commit adultery, to love Yahweh with all your soul, heart, and mind, to not worship idols. You did not have to be circumcised to do that. And that's what Paul is saying here. And he's speaking of the circumcision didn't even keep Moses, because Moses expounded on so many things about loving your neighbor and take care of the widow and all of these things, and they did not do it. And that's what Paul is talking about here. You think because you're circumcised, you're righteous. Because you keep a feast, you're righteous. Now, you breaking the law, your circumcision is nothing. Romans 3:28. Wherefore we conclude that a man is justified by faith without the deeds of the law. The deeds of the law of Moses, without sacrifice, without the clean, without the touch not, taste not, without those things. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about loving your neighbor as yourself and loving Yahweh with all your soul, heart, and mind. Those are life-giving. Those are the way of life. They're not deeds of the law. Yahweh, is he Yahweh of the Jews only? This word is theos. Yahweh is theos. Yahweh is God. Is he not? Is he Yahweh or Elohim of the Jews only? Is he not also the Gentiles? Is he not our creator? Did he not create everyone? Yes, of the Gentiles also. Seeing it is one Elohim, or one Yahweh, which shall justify the circumcision by faith and the uncircumcision through faith. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid, or Yahweh forbid. Yea, we establish the law. The law of Moses is established in faith. The law of the Messiah is established in faith. And our faith is that we keep the commandments of Yah. We do his commandments. Romans 4:1. What shall we say then that Abraham our father, as pertaining to the flesh, has found? For if Abraham were justified by works, he has therefore to glory, but not before Yahweh. For what says the scripture? Abraham believed Yahweh, and it was counted unto him for righteousness. Now to him that works is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt. But to him that works not, but believes on him that justifies the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. Even as David also describes the blessedness of man unto whom Yahweh imputes righteousness without works. Blessed are they whose iniquities are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom Yahweh will not impute sin. What is sin? Transgression of the law. What law? Transgression of the 10 Commandments, of Yahweh's law. Comes this blessedness then upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness. How was it then reckoned? When he was in circumcision or uncircumcision? He was not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision when this was reckoned to him. And he received the sign of circumcision as a seal of righteousness of the faith which he had, being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised, that righteousness might be imputed unto them also. The father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of that faith of our father Abraham, which he had, being yet uncircumcised. For the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham, but to his seed through the law of Moses. Okay, through the law. It was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith. For if they which are of the law, or if they which are of the law be heirs, faith is made void, and the promise made of none effect, because the law works wrath. Now, does the law of Yahweh, does the 10 Commandments work wrath? Is there any wrath in the 10 Commandments at all? No, there's not. You can't find one word about wrath in the 10 Commandments. So how does that law work wrath? And for where no law is, there is no transgression. Yet Paul says, the commandment came and I died because of the sin within me. The sin is there. The transgression, the law of Moses speaks of the transgression. And in the law of Moses, the transgression is dealt with. It says, you break them, you die. That's the law that he says, if there's no law, there's no transgression. It defined the transgression. It pointed to Christ so that we could understand that we were dead in our sins. Therefore, it is of faith that it might be by grace to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, and not only which is of the law, but also to that which is of the faith of Abraham, who is the father of all. Everyone, Jew and Gentile. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations. Therefore, the one who believes Yahweh, even Yahweh, who quickens the dead, calls those things which be not as though they were. First Corinthians 7:16. For what? I'm not sure why I have this one in here, but I'll just read it anyhow. For how do you know, wife, whether you shall save your husband, or how do you know, man, whether you should save your wife? And he's talking about being as you are. When you come and repent, you don't you don't have to change your status in life. You stay where you're at. If you're a slave, you're a slave. If you're owner, you're owner. If you're married, you're married. If you're unmarried, you're unmarried. This is what he's talking about here. But as Yahweh has distributed to every man, as Yahweh has called everyone, so let him walk, and so ordain I in all the assemblies. If a man is called being circumcised, then let him not become uncircumcised. If any is called in uncircumcision, if he is not circumcised, then let him be uncircumcised. You don't have to be circumcised. You don't have to change your condition. You have to change your heart. You have to change your ways, but your status stays the same. Circumcision is nothing, and uncircumcision is nothing. But what is important? What is it? What needs to change? What has to change? It's the keeping of the commandments of Yahweh. So let every man abide in the same calling wherein he is called. See, if you're a baker, you stay a baker. Now, if you're a prostitute or a gigolo or a male prostitute or female prostitute, you better get out of that profession, because you don't want to stay in that. But the point is, if you're married, stay married. If you're single, stay single. Doesn't mean you can't get married eventually. But if you're circumcised, stay circumcised. If you're uncircumcised, stay uncircumcised. It's not a requirement. These physical rudiments of this world are not required for the salvation. The keeping of the commandments are required for salvation. Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith the Messiah has made us free from that bondage, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. They couldn't live under Moses. Everything they did made them unclean. Just life made them unclean. So that's why Paul says, behold, I, Paul, say to you, that if you be circumcised, the Messiah shall profit you nothing. Now, really, doesn't mean if your parents circumcised you and you were a baby like they do here in this country, that doesn't make you disqualified. This word really is, if you get circumcised because you're coming to the Messiah, he's going to profit you nothing. Don't do it. Now, if you get circumcised for health reasons, fine, do it. But you better not do it to be righteous, because if you do, boom, you're done. That's what it says here. Messiah can't do anything for you. For I testify again, okay, to every man that is circumcised that he is a debtor to do the whole law. What is he talking about? He's talking about the law of Moses. You realize what it means to be a debtor to do the whole law, all of Moses, the 613, or I should say the 603 can't, the feasts and the sacrifice. You got to be cutting the throats of the animals, folks, because you're not doing the whole law. If you're how do you even get across to somebody this? And the Messiah has become no effect unto you whosoever are justified by the law. You've fallen from grace. You're doing those things in Moses for your righteousness. For we, through the Spirit, wait for the hope of righteousness by faith. For in Yeshua the Messiah, circumcision avails nothing, and uncircumcision avails nothing. But in Yeshua the Messiah, what does it work? Faith that works by love. None of this is talking about the Ten Commandments. You don't. The 10 Commandments aren't part of this works. And to throw 10 Commandments in with this right here is a very, very deadly, deadly thing to do. It's going to kill your soul. It will kill your soul. Galatians 6:12, as many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only unless they should suffer persecution for the cross of the Messiah. In other words, some of these Jewish believers didn't want the reproach of the non-believing Jews, and they would get circumcised so they weren't persecuted. For neither they themselves who are circumcised keep the law. Well, they don't. They didn't. They couldn't. But desire to have you circumcised, that they may glory in your flesh. They were trying to, we're all circumcised. But Yahweh forbid that I should glory save in the cross of our Adonai, Yeshua the Master, by whom the world is crucified unto me, and I unto the world. And then he goes on to say here, for in Messiah Yeshua neither circumcision avails anything, nor uncircumcision. Now get this, but a new creature. Who's the new creature? How's it coming? The new creature's coming in Yeshua Messiah. Not in circumcision or uncircumcision, but in the Messiah is what forms a new creature. And as many as walk according to this rule, peace be unto them and mercy upon the Israel of Yahweh. And this whole circumcision is to be of the heart. In Leviticus 26:41, and I always have walked contrary to them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. Now, if their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and they then accept the punishment of their iniquity. Yahweh is talking about the uncircumcised heart all the way back in Leviticus. In Deuteronomy 10:16, he says, circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked. Folks, do not be stiff-necked. Get out of that false doctrine. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. He told us to remember it. not forget it, not change it, not do away with it. In Deuteronomy 3:6, and Yahweh your Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all that you may live. Do you love him? Do you love him enough to keep his Sabbath? Do you love him enough? 2 Peter 3:14. Therefore, beloved, since you are waiting for these, be diligent and be found by him without spot or blemish and at peace, and count the patience of our Adonai as salvation, just as our beloved brother Paul also wrote to you according to the wisdom given him, as he does in all his letters when he speaks in them of these matters. There are some things in them that are hard to understand, which the ignorant and the unstable twist to their own destruction, as they do the other scriptures. Do not, please do not be as these ignorant people that twist these scriptures to their own destruction. I've just shown you here beyond any shadow of a doubt that Colossians 2:16 is not referencing the law of Yahweh, the Ten Commandments, and his seventh-day Sabbath. Not in any way, shape, and form. His law is holy, just, and good, and is a law by which we must live. We will find life. And if we break that law and continue to transgress that law, be it willfully or ignorantly, we will be thrown into the lake of fire. So I pray that Yahweh's word will always go forth and not come back void. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And we just always praise our Creator, our Maker, Yahweh. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.